The waitress slipped a note to the Mafia boss. Your girlfriend betrayed you. When you're a waitress, you learn a painful truth very early. People don't see you. They talk in front of you like you're furniture. They whisper sins over your head, laugh at cruelty inches from your face, and never once wonder what you hear or understand. That invisibility was the only reason she was still alive. She had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether she would stay silent or change the fate of the most feared man in the city forever. The girl's name was Isabella. She was 22, exhausted, underpaid, and invisible, working the night shift at the Onyx Room, a luxury restaurant where the elite of Chicago came to celebrate power, blood money, and secrets. The stiff black apron dug into her waist as she moved between tables, her feet aching from a double shift she hadn't been allowed to refuse. Tonight was supposed to be quiet. But table 4 was occupied. And when he sat there, the air always changed. Everyone in the city knew the name King Lucien Valmont, even if no one dared say it out loud. To the public, he was a reclusive billionaire investor with old-world manners and a cold smile. To the underworld, he was something else entirely. A vampire king who had ruled the night for centuries, an apex predator disguised in tailored suits and polite silence. Lucien Valmont did not rush. He did not fidget. He did not fear. He moved with the lethal calm of a creature that had outlived empires. Isabella didn't need rumors to know what he was. She felt it in her bones the moment he entered the room. The temperature dropped subtly, like the night itself leaned closer to listen. His presence pressed against her chest every time she passed his table, making her breath catch for reasons she couldn't explain. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent, perfectly tailored to conceal the strength beneath. His dark hair was neatly combed, his face sharp and beautiful in a way that felt dangerous rather than comforting. Sitting across from him was Serena. Blonde. Flawless. Diamonds glittering at her throat. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged under spotlights and magazine covers, not seated across from a monster who could tear out a heart without spilling a drop of blood. To anyone else, they looked like a powerful couple on a quiet date. But Isabella had served tables here for 4 years. She knew the rhythm of romance. She knew the rhythm of lies. And she knew the rhythm of betrayal. More wine, sir? Isabella asked softly, her voice steady as she placed the bottle on the table. Leave it, Lucien said. His voice was low, smooth, ancient. He didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on Serena, studying her the way a wolf studies a wounded deer. Isabella noticed what no one else did. Serena's hand was shaking. Not enough for anyone to comment. Just a faint tremor in her fingers as they touched the stem of her glass. Her gaze kept drifting, not to Lucien, but to the velvet curtains near the entrance. Then to her phone, face down on the table. Isabella stepped back, pretending to clean a nearby station, watching from the shadows. Serena checked the time. 8:14 p.m. 10 seconds later she checked again. Lucien's gaze sharpened. You seem distracted, he said calmly. Don't you like the risotto? It's perfect, Serena replied too quickly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I just have a headache. The lights feel bright. The Onyx Room was nearly dark. A chill slid down Isabella's spine. She moved toward the kitchen to grab water, passing table 4 once more, and that's when Serena's phone lit up. Isabella saw the message clearly. Unknown packages secured. Exit through the kitchen in 5. Clear the line. Clear the line. Isabella froze. She knew what those words meant. She'd grown up in neighborhoods where coded messages were a language of survival. Clear the line meant move everyone out of the way. It meant blood was coming. She pushed through the kitchen doors, heart pounding. The noise hit her instantly, sizzling pans, shouting chefs, but something was wrong here too. The back door, usually propped open for smokers, was shut. And standing beside it was a new dishwasher, a man named Cole who had started 3 days ago. He wasn't washing dishes. He was texting furiously, eyes flicking to the door every few seconds. He was guarding the exit. They weren't just attacking from the front. They were trapping him. Isabella's hands shook as she filled the water pitcher. She could leave. She could hide. She could pretend she saw nothing. Lucien Valmont was a criminal, a monster, a vampire king, not her responsibility. Then she remembered last week. The night she'd limped through her shift in worn-out shoes and Lucien had noticed. He'd left $300 on a $50 bill and looked her in the eye. Buy new shoes, he'd said. Not as an order. As kindness. Isabella swallowed. Serena stood from the table. I'm just going to the restroom, she said sweetly, grabbing her purse. Lucien nodded. Take your time. She didn't look back. She wasn't going to the restroom. The moment she cleared the table, the attack would begin. Isabella grabbed a napkin. Her fingers trembled as she picked up a pen. If she wrote the note, she would be choosing a side. If she didn't, he would be dead within 60 seconds. She wrote fast. Your girlfriend betrayed you. They're in position. She folded the napkin twice. Breathed in. Put on her invisible waitress mask. She returned to table 4. The check? She asked. Lucien looked up, annoyed. We're not finished. I think you'll want this, Isabella whispered, sliding the napkin beneath his wine glass. She pressed it gently with her thumb. Read it, she mouthed. No. Lucien's irritation vanished. His hand covered the napkin casually, slipping it into his lap unseen. His eyes lifted, not to Serena, but to Isabella. Where? He asked. One word. No breath. The kitchen. And the entrance, she whispered, refilling his water like nothing was wrong. The dishwasher is one of them. Lucien nodded once. Behind the bar, he said quietly. Stay low. He stood. Didn't reach for a gun. Didn't panic. He simply adjusted his jacket and picked up the steak knife. The kitchen doors exploded open. Gunfire erupted. Glass shattered. People screamed. Chaos tore through the room. Isabella dove behind the bar as bullets ripped through crystal and marble. She curled into herself, hands over her head, heart hammering as the sounds of war filled the restaurant. Then silence. A heavy presence loomed above her. Waitress, a voice said calmly. She looked up. Lucien Valmont stood there, blood drying along his cheek, holding a gun that wasn't his. His eyes glowed faintly red in the dim light, ancient, alert, alive. Are you hurt? She asked, shaking. He shook his head. He dropped a thick stack of cash beside her. That's your tip, he said. Now stand up. Why? Isabella whispered. Because you just saved my life, Lucien replied, eyes scanning the wreckage, and that means you've ruined yours. He extended a blood-stained hand. Come with me, he said. If you stay, you die. Isabella stared at his hand. Then she took it. Story script. The city outside looked normal. Cars moved through wet streets, headlights cutting through the mist, couples laughing under umbrellas, neon signs glowing like nothing had happened. But Isabella knew better. Chicago had always had two worlds layered on top of each other, the one humans saw and the one the night belonged to. Tonight she had stepped into the second world. Lucien didn't run. He moved with the calm speed of something that didn't believe in losing. His grip on Isabella's hand was firm but not cruel, guiding her through the back alley behind the onyx room. The pavement was slick with rain and grease, the air heavy with the smell of dumpsters and expensive cologne drifting from the shattered restaurant behind them. Isabella's breath came in sharp bursts. Her mind kept replaying the sound of bullets and glass. Her ears still rang. Her hands shook so badly she could barely keep up with his pace. A matte black car sat beside a dumpster, parked like it owned the alley. Lucien opened the passenger door and pushed her inside with a force that wasn't rough, just urgent. I can't leave like this, Isabella gasped. My purse, my ID, my phone is inside. If you go back in there, you're dead, Lucien said, voice flat. He shut the door with a soft click, like he was sealing her fate. Then he slid behind the wheel. The engine roared to life, low and powerful like a beast waking up. Blue lights flashed at the mouth of the alley. Police, Isabella whispered. Down, Lucien ordered. She folded into the footwell, heart slamming against her ribs. The car jerked backward, tires squealing, then spun so sharply she felt her stomach twist. The rear bumper clipped a garbage bin, metal shrieking. Then Lucien drove straight through a chain-link fence like it was paper, sparks exploding against the car as they burst onto a service road running parallel to the river. Isabella covered her mouth to keep from screaming. He drove like he couldn't be caught, because he couldn't. For 10 minutes, the only sound was the engine and Isabella's ragged breathing. Lucien held a disposable phone to his ear, speaking in a low voice that made Isabella's skin prickle. It's me, he said. The onyx is burned. Serena turned. The dishwasher was an infiltrator. Pause. No. I'm alive. Another pause. I have a civilian with me. Isabella's stomach dropped at the word civilian. Like she was nothing but a complication. Lucien's jaw tightened. Clean it, he said, voice colder. Erase her from the scene. Cameras. Receipts. Staff records. Everything. He hung up and tossed the phone into the back seat. Isabella sat up slowly, trembling. What does clean it mean? Lucien glanced at her. Streetlights slid across his face in rhythmic shadows, making him look carved from darkness. It means you vanish, he said. If your name enters the system they can find you. And if they find you they'll use you to get to me. Who are they? Isabella asked, hugging herself. People who kill professionally, Lucien answered. And people who pay them. Isabella swallowed hard. Serena set this up. She was bait, Lucien corrected. She doesn't have the mind to orchestrate this. She's just pretty packaging. The cruelty of his words made Isabella flinch, but something in his tone said he wasn't insulting Serena so much as stating a fact like he was examining a weapon. Lucien turned off the main road and drove into the industrial district. The city grew emptier. Old brick factories rose like skeletons. Rusted water towers loomed above broken windows. The river smelled metallic, ancient, like it carried secrets it had never given back. Isabella clutched the seat belt. Where are we going? A place no one looks, Lucien said. He stopped in front of a warehouse that looked abandoned, its steel door marked with fading graffiti. He tapped something on the dashboard. The door rolled open with a deep mechanical groan, revealing darkness inside. Lucien drove in. The door shut behind them with a heavy clang. Lights snapped on. Isabella blinked. It wasn't an abandoned warehouse. It was a bunker. Monitors lined one wall, each showing different camera angles of the city. Another wall held weapons arranged with chilling precision. A workbench was stacked with knives, guns, and neatly labeled ammunition. In the center stood a large metal table like something from a surgical room. Isabella's throat went dry. What is this? My refuge, Lucien said, stripping off his ruined jacket and tossing it onto the table. Dust and dried blood scattered into the air. Underneath, his white dress shirt was stained. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms marked by faint, strange scars, like old burns shaped in symbols. For a moment, Isabella stared too long. Lucien noticed. His eyes met hers. And something silent passed between them, an unspoken warning, and an unspoken curiosity. You're safe here, he said finally, though the word safe felt wrong surrounded by weapons and darkness. Isabella's laugh came out shaky. Safe with you? Lucien's mouth curved slightly, not a smile but something close. That's the irony, he said. The most dangerous thing in this city is currently the only thing keeping you alive. Isabella swallowed, forcing herself to breathe slowly. I don't understand any of this. You don't need to, Lucien said. You just need to tell me what you saw. He moved toward her, and Isabella tensed instinctively. He stopped just short of her space, close enough that she could smell him. Clean soap, expensive cologne, and something else underneath. Something wild. Something that made her pulse trip. What color was her phone case? He asked. Isabella blinked. What? Details matter, Lucien said, voice calm. Her phone. The message. The man by the back door. Everything. Isabella forced herself to focus, closing her eyes as she replayed the moment. Her phone case was white, with gold edges. Lucien nodded. She checked the time twice, Isabella continued. 8:14. Then the message came through. It was preview text. She didn't unlock it. Lucien's eyes narrowed. Good. And the dishwasher, Cole, he kept texting by the back door. Like he was waiting for something. Lucien turned away, moving to a tablet on the table. He started 3 days ago? Yes. Isabella hesitated, then something surfaced in her memory like a shard of glass. Wait, she said quickly. Yesterday. I saw him talking to a man in a gray suit. Not our usual linen supplier. They handed something off, small, silver. Lucien froze. Slowly he turned the tablet toward her. He swiped through photos. Faces appeared one after another. Men with dead eyes, men with scars, men who looked like they'd never laughed in their lives. Then Isabella's stomach dropped. That one, she whispered, pointing. That's him. The man in the gray suit. He had a scar near his ear. Lucien went very still. The air in the bunker seemed to shift, like something unseen had woken up. That's Declan O'Connor, Lucien said, voice frighteningly soft. The exiled son. Isabella didn't know what that meant, but the way Lucien spoke his name made her blood run cold. He's supposed to be in London, Lucien murmured, more to himself. If he's here, someone wants war. Isabella backed up a step. War between who? Lucien looked at her. For a second his eyes weren't just cold, they were ancient. Heavy with history she couldn't imagine. Between the families, he said. Between the night and the night. Isabella's knees felt weak. She looked around the bunker again, the weapons, the screens, the feeling of a world she wasn't meant to see. Then she whispered, voice trembling, "What are you?" Lucien didn't answer immediately. He walked closer and Isabella's heart pounded so hard it hurt. He lifted a hand, slow, controlled, like he was giving her time to pull away. He didn't touch her face. He touched her wrist. His fingers were warm. Human warm, which made it even stranger. His thumb brushed the pulse point gently, like he could feel her fear beating inside her. "You already know," he said quietly. Isabella's throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to laugh, to call herself crazy. But she'd seen his calming gunfire. His speed. The way people around him seemed to instinctively shrink. The way the air bowed to him. "A vampire?" she whispered. Lucien's eyes held hers. "Yes," he said. Isabella's body shivered. "So Serena, she knew?" "She thought she did," Lucien said. "Humans always think they understand monsters because it makes them feel powerful." He released her wrist and turned away like the conversation bored him, but Isabella saw something else. A flicker of pain, buried too deep for anyone to notice unless they were watching for it. "You should shower," he said abruptly. "There's a bathroom in the back." Isabella hesitated. "I don't have clothes." Lucien opened a cabinet without looking at her and tossed her a soft gray shirt and black sweatpants. They smelled like expensive detergent and something faintly masculine. "Wear those," he said. "It's clean." Isabella wanted to say thank you, but the words caught in her throat. She walked toward the bathroom like her legs belonged to someone else. Under the hot water she shook. Not just from fear. From the strange way her body reacted to him. She'd hated men like Lucien all her life, powerful men who treated the world like it was theirs. But Lucien's power felt different. It wasn't just money and guns. It was something older. Something absolute. And yet, he'd asked if she was hurt. He'd told her she'd be safe. He'd given her clothes. What? When she came back out, her hair damp and her skin flushed from heat, the bunker was no longer quiet. A man sat at one of the monitors typing fast on a laptop. He was huge, at least 6'5", with a shaved head and a thick beard. He wore a tactical vest over a hoodie, like he belonged in war zones instead of warehouses. He glanced at Isabella with a look that measured her like an object. "Civilians clean," he said without greeting. "No ID in the system now. Her name doesn't exist." Isabella's stomach turned. "Excuse me?" Lucien stood near the weapon wall, assembling a handgun with surgical precision. "Isabella, this is Silas." Silas didn't smile. He didn't soften. His eyes were sharp and emotionless. "She saved you," Silas said. "That makes her either holy, or a problem." "I'm not holy," Isabella snapped, surprising herself. "I'm a waitress." Silas's mouth twitched as if amused. "That's what makes you dangerous. People talk around you. People underestimate you. And you still chose to act." Lucien clicked the handgun into place. "Any trace of Serena?" he asked. Silas typed. "Phone is dead. Apartment empty." He hit a key and a bank statement filled the large screen. "I tracked a payment to Serena's offshore account," Silas said. $200,000. 3 days ago. Isabella's breath caught. "Who paid her?" "A shell company," Silas replied. "Cayman Islands. But the routing code isn't a bank. It's a holding identifier." Lucien stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Real estate." Isabella frowned. "Real estate." Lucien looked at her like she'd spoken a new language. "High-end commercial property. That code is tied to acquisitions." Silas kept typing, then froze. A building appeared on the screen. Meridian Tower. Isabella felt a memory slam into her mind. "The Meridian," she whispered. "We catered an event there last month." Lucien turned sharply. "You were there?" "Yes," Isabella said, voice tight. "It was a fundraiser. Big security. Lots of important people." Lucien's face darkened. "A senator was there." Isabella hesitated, then shook her head. "Not the senator you're thinking of. The host wasn't him." Silas paused. "Who was it?" Isabella swallowed, her waitress memory pulling up the details like receipts. "A man named Victor Hale," she said. "He signed the checks. He was everywhere. Talking to everyone." The bunker went silent. Lucien's eyes turned lethal. Silas slowly leaned back in his chair. "Victor Hale is your partner?" Lucien didn't speak. His hands clenched around the gun, and Isabella felt the air vibrate with restrained violence. Isabella whispered, "I saw Victor near the kitchen hallway that night. He was talking to Serena." She looked scared. Lucien slammed his fist into the metal table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Of course, he hissed. That greedy parasite. He wants the docks. He wants my empire. Isabella flinched but didn't move. Lucien paced like a predator trapped in a cage. He thinks I'm dead, Lucien said, voice low. That's why he struck tonight. He thinks he can take everything while I'm buried. Silas stood. If Victor's behind this, half the police are in his pocket. We can't go to them. Lucien's mouth curved into something terrifying. Then we don't go to them, Lucien said. We go to Victor. Isabella's stomach tightened. How? Lucien stopped pacing. He looked at her. Not like she was a civilian. Not like she was a burden. Like she was the missing piece. We walk into his celebration, Lucien said softly. Victor is hosting a gala tonight. He believes he won. Silas frowned. Security will be strict. They'll be watching for you. Lucien stepped closer to Isabella, his presence swallowing the space between them. He tilted his head slightly, studying her face, her damp hair, her wide, frightened eyes. They won't be looking for a waitress, Lucien murmured. Isabella's throat went dry. What are you saying? Lucien's gaze deepened. Tonight, he said, voice like velvet wrapped around steel, you stop being invisible. Isabella's pulse jumped. No. I can't. I don't belong in that world. Lucien's eyes held hers, unblinking. You already stepped into it, he said. When you chose to warn me. Isabella shook her head, panic rising. I didn't choose your world. I chose not letting someone die in front of me. Lucien's expression shifted slightly. Something almost like respect flickered. That, he said quietly, is exactly why you belong. Silas interrupted, practical as a blade. We need proof. Victor doesn't fall without evidence. Lucien nodded once. You hack his server room during the gala. Find the ledger. Find the payments. Silas looked at Isabella. And her? Lucien's eyes never left Isabella. She's with me, he said. Isabella's heart hammered. With you? Like a hostage. Lucien's mouth twitched. No. Like my companion. The word hit Isabella like a spark. Companion. Not servant. Not pawn. Not waitress. Isabella opened her mouth, but her voice failed. Lucien stepped in closer, lowering his voice so Silas couldn't hear. If I tell you to run, you run, Lucien whispered. You don't look back. You don't hesitate. Isabella stared at him, breathing shallowly. You're actually going to protect me, she whispered, disbelief cracking her words. Lucien's gaze softened so slightly she almost imagined it. I already am, he said. For a moment, Isabella forgot how to breathe. Then Lucien straightened, turning back to Silas with the mask of a king sliding back into place. Get the stylist, Lucien ordered. No questions. Silas raised an eyebrow. We're doing that? Lucien's eyes gleamed. We're going to make Victor believe he's looking at a couple who has everything, Lucien said. A wealthy investor, and the woman he's about to marry. Isabella's knees almost gave out. You're Mary? She stammered. Lucien turned, and the look he gave her was cold enough to steal warmth and hot enough to burn at the same time. It's a cover, he said. But his voice lowered, intimate, dangerous. And it will keep you close. Isabella's cheeks heated. She didn't know if she wanted to scream, cry, or run. Instead, she stood there, poor waitress in borrowed clothes, staring at a vampire king who had just decided her life belonged to him. And the terrifying part was, somewhere beneath her fear, a deeper emotion stirred. Not trust. Not love. Something worse. Hope. Story script. The transformation began without ceremony. Isabella stood in the center of the bunker, barefoot on cold concrete, while strangers moved around her like she was no longer a person but a project. A stylist arrived blindfolded, escorted by Silas, saying nothing except quiet instructions. Clothing racks appeared. Jewelry cases opened. Lights shifted. Lucien watched from a distance. He didn't interfere. He didn't comment. But his eyes followed every movement with sharp attention, like a general preparing for war. Isabella felt exposed. Not because of skin, but because this was the first time in her life anyone had invested this much effort into how she looked. Her messy bun was undone. Her hair was washed, dried, shaped into soft dark waves that framed her face instead of hiding it. Makeup was applied carefully, not to turn her into someone else, but to reveal what had always been there. Her tired eyes looked brighter. The faint scar near her eyebrow softened into something that made her look resilient instead of fragile. Then came the dress. Midnight blue silk. Smooth as water. It hugged her curves in a way that made her straighten instinctively, unsure how to carry herself in something so elegant. A slit climbed her thigh, dangerous, deliberate. Sapphire earrings cooled against her skin, matched with a necklace that rested just above her collarbone like a promise. When the stylist stepped back, Isabella barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked powerful, not rich, not arrogant, just undeniable. Lucien approached. The room seemed to shift with him. For the first time since they met, he stopped directly in front of her and said nothing. His gaze moved slowly from her eyes to her lips to the curve of her neck. Not hungry, not possessive, evaluating. Then something unexpected happened. His jaw tightened. "You'll wear this," he said quietly, handing her a small black device. She looked down. "Is this?" "A weapon," Lucien said. "Compact. Safety off. Aim and pull. Don't hesitate." Her fingers closed around it. Cold. Heavy. "I've never," Isabella began. Lucien leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You don't look like someone who hesitates when it matters," he said. Their eyes locked. The moment stretched. Isabella's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the way he said it like he already believed in her. Silas cleared his throat loudly. "We're burning time." Lucien stepped back, the mask sliding back over his face. Minutes later, they were inside a white Rolls-Royce gliding toward the Meridian Museum under a sky heavy with clouds. Camera flashes erupted the moment the doors opened. Lucien stepped out first, immaculate in a black tuxedo that made him look less like a billionaire and more like a king stepping into court. He turned and extended his hand. Isabella hesitated only a second before taking it. The flashbulbs went wild. "Mr. Valmont." "Lucien. Is it true you survived the incident?" "Who is she?" Lucien didn't answer. He guided Isabella forward, his hand resting at the small of her back, not tight, not loose. Protective. Inside, the gala was a glittering ocean of wealth and power. Politicians, CEOs, vampires hiding in plain sight, humans pretending they weren't afraid of the dark. And standing at the center of it all, Victor Hale. He was handsome in a polished way, silver at his temples, smile smooth and practiced. He laughed with the mayor, champagne in hand. Then he saw Lucien. The color drained from his face. For half a second his mask slipped. Then it returned. "Lucien," Victor said warmly, stepping forward like he wasn't staring at a ghost. "I heard terrible rumors." Lucien smiled. "Cool. Perfect. Rumors travel fast when people want you dead," Lucien replied. Victor's eyes flicked to Isabella. "And you are." Lucien's hand tightened ever so slightly on her back. "My fiancé," he said calmly. The word echoed. Isabella felt it hit her chest like a shockwave. Victor recovered quickly, smiling. "Congratulations. I didn't know you were settling down." Lucien leaned in just enough for Victor to feel the threat beneath the politeness. "I didn't either," he said. "Life has a way of surprising us." As they moved deeper into the crowd, Isabella felt eyes on her, measuring, judging, whispering. She lifted her chin, forcing herself not to shrink. Lucien noticed. "Don't lower your gaze," he murmured. "Predators do that to prey." She swallowed. "And what am I?" Lucien's lips brushed her ear. "Not prey." They danced. Not because the music demanded it, but because Victor was watching. Lucien's hand rested at her waist. Isabella's fingers touched his shoulder. The closeness was electric, restrained, deliberate. She felt his strength, the controlled tension beneath his calm. "You're shaking," he said softly. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "And yet you're still here," Lucien replied. "That's courage." Across the room, Victor stiffened as Silas slipped through a guarded door. Minutes passed. Then, the lights flickered. A murmur rippled through the room. Victor's phone buzzed. Lucien leaned closer to Isabella. "Don't move." Screens around the hall lit up. Bank records. Payments. Names. Dates. Victor's smile vanished. "You shouldn't have tried to kill me," Lucien said calmly, his voice carrying through the room without being raised. "You especially shouldn't have paid humans to do it." Victor's composure cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about." Lucien's eyes glowed faintly red. The room went silent. Isabella felt it then, a strange pull in her chest like something inside her was responding to him. "You underestimated two things," Lucien continued. "My survival, and her." Victor sneered. "She's nothing." Before Isabella could think, her body reacted. Her blood burned. The chandeliers shattered. A wave of invisible force rippled outward, knocking Victor to his knees. The room screamed. Lucien turned to her slowly. Shock crossed his face for the first time. "What are you?" he whispered. Isabella stared at her hands, trembling. "I don't know," she said, terrified. But Lucien smiled. Not cold. Not cruel. Proud. The silence after the chandeliers shattered was absolute. Glass lay scattered like fallen stars across marble floors. Guests stood frozen, mouths open, eyes wide with terror and awe. Some screamed. Others backed away slowly, instinct screaming at them to flee from whatever had just awakened in the room. Isabella couldn't breathe. Her hands were still raised, fingers trembling, her heart pounding so violently she thought it might tear free of her chest. She hadn't meant to do anything. She hadn't even understood what was happening, only that something deep inside her had answered Lucien's presence like a forgotten song. Victor Hale lay on the floor, gasping, his expensive suit dusted with glass. His confident smile was gone, replaced by raw fear. Lucien stood between Isabella and the crowd without thinking. Not as a lover. Not as a king. As a shield. Every instinct in him screamed the same truth at once. She was not human. And she was not ordinary. "Everyone stay where you are," Lucien said calmly. His voice cut through panic like a blade. Security hesitated. Politicians stared. Vampires hiding among humans stiffened, recognizing power that didn't belong to any bloodline they knew. Victor struggled to his knees. She's dangerous." Lucien looked down at him. "So am I," he replied. He turned slightly, lowering his voice so only Isabella could hear. "Look at me," he said. She did. His red eyes no longer frightened her. They anchored her. "Breathe," Lucien instructed softly. "You're not losing control. You're waking up." "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," Isabella whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "I know," Lucien said. And he did. That was the moment he understood the truth, one that hit him harder than any betrayal or ambush ever had. Power did not make her cruel. Fear did not make her small. She had been kind even when she was invisible. That kind of soul paired with power like this was rare beyond measure. Ancient. The room erupted into chaos again as police sirens wailed outside. Victor tried to crawl backward. Lucien didn't look at him. Silas emerged from the side hall, already on his phone. Ledgers secured. Copies sent. Every payment. Every name. Lucien nodded once. "Good," he said. Then finally he looked at Victor. "You wanted my empire," Lucien said evenly. "You wanted my death. You used humans, politicians, mercenaries." Victor's voice cracked. "I did what I had to do." Lucien crouched in front of him, eye level. "No," he said. "You did what you thought you could get away with." Lucien stood and turned his back on him. "Expose everything," he told Silas. "Let the law devour him." Victor screamed as officers stormed in, cuffing him, dragging him away while cameras flashed and voices shouted. Instant karma. The gala would be remembered forever, not as a celebration, but as the night power was revealed and corruption burned under the lights. But Isabella barely noticed any of it. Her knees buckled. Lucien caught her before she hit the floor. For the first time he held her fully, arms wrapped around her, steady and unyielding. The noise faded as her cheek pressed against his chest. She felt his heartbeat. Slow. Strong. Real. "You're safe," he murmured. "I'm not," she whispered. "I don't even know what I am." Lucien closed his eyes briefly. Neither did he. They returned to the bunker before dawn. Isabella sat wrapped in a blanket, hands still shaking. The adrenaline had faded, leaving exhaustion and fear in its wake. Lucien dismissed Silas with a nod. When they were alone, the silence felt heavier than before. Lucien stood across from her, removing his cufflinks slowly, deliberately, like he was giving himself time to choose his next words carefully. "There are legends," he said finally. "Older than vampire clans. Older than kings." Isabella looked up. "They speak of sentinels," Lucien continued. "Beings born human, who awaken when exposed to ancient bloodlines. Protectors. Balancers. Queens without crowns." Her breath caught. "You're saying I'm one of them?" Lucien met her gaze. "I'm saying you're something the world forgot existed," he said. "And something everyone will want to control once they realize it." Fear crept into her voice. "Even you?" Lucien went still. Slowly, deliberately he walked toward her, but stopped a full step away. He knelt instead, lowering himself to her level. "I have ruled for centuries," he said quietly. "I have taken cities, destroyed enemies, commanded monsters." His voice softened. "But if you fear me, then I've already lost." Isabella searched his face for deception. Found none. What happens now? She asked. Lucien inhaled deeply. Now, he said, you choose? She frowned. Choose what? Whether you leave, Lucien said. Disappear. Start a new life somewhere far from me in this world. Her chest tightened. Or, he continued, you stay. Learn what you are. Stand beside me, not beneath me. Not protected. Equal. Isabella stared at him. For a long moment she saw the truth clearly. He wasn't claiming her. He was offering her freedom. Tears welled in her eyes. All my life, she said softly, people decided who I was for me. For invisible. Disposable. She stood. Stepped closer. But tonight, she said, voice steady despite the fear, I chose to speak. I chose to act. And I choose again. Lucien's breath stilled. I stay, Isabella said. Not because you're powerful, but because you see me. Lucien rose slowly. The space between them disappeared, not with urgency, not with hunger, but with reverence. He lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. A vow. Not possession. Not dominance. Respect. You will never be invisible again, he said. Isabella smiled through tears. And for the first time in her life she believed it. Weeks later the city whispered new rumors. About the fall of Victor Hale. About corruption exposed. About a vampire king who no longer ruled alone. They spoke of a woman at his side. Not a queen by blood, but by choice. By courage. By kindness. And somewhere deep beneath the city, in a world that had once ignored her, a former waitress learned to wield power without losing her heart.